Hey guys, Jeremy here. I just wanted to give a heads up that these first few podcasts were not intended to be released, and as such, the production quality is not very great. We recorded this in Joey's living room on our phones, so there's a lot of background noise from a dog to my phone vibrating to me clicking a pin to Joey tapping on the table, all sorts of great stuff. So please bear with us. We're learning and improving our recording conditions every week, I promise. In addition to this, at the time of this recording, we hadn't decided on a name, so we used Charismatic Tunes as a stand-in. We did end up landing on Feedback Loop, so you can get in touch with us at twitter.com/FBLpodcast, facebook.com/FBLpodcast, instagram.com/feedbacklooppodcast. Our episodes will also be airing on YouTube. You'll have to search for Feedback Loop Podcast because we don't have a unique URL yet, and also on soundcloud.com/feedbacklooppodcast. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy this first episode of Feedback Loop. Welcome to Charismatic Tunes. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Joey.
We're talking about music. It's happening. We decided to listen to an album a week, an artist a week. Just kind of experience more music, discover it.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that later. In a future podcast, maybe we'll kind of explain why we're doing it. But we're testing the waters. If you're hearing this, that's an issue,
Yeah.
right? Me just talking and not letting you talk.
No, I'm not, yeah.
I have an agenda in my mind.
You do.
And I want to get through these items in my mind.
No, it's fine.
If you're hearing this, then presumably we've had a few other podcasts released before this, and it's just kind of like lost footage.
Or you're in our house.
Or you're in our house, like Roxy is. Or you're that has woken up and come downstairs.
But that's okay. She needs
Probably shouldn't say people's names.
That's true.
Other people's names.
Yeah. Our names are fine.
Our names are fine. Last names, definitely not.
Definitely not. First names, probably not.
Right. But
And
unless it does.
Alyssa might slip out once in a while.
Exactly. Exactly. Anyways, so we decided to listen to an album a week just to discover new music or share music with each other that we wanted to discuss. This past week, we've been listening to Dan Deacon's Gliss Riffer.
Gliss Riffer.
It's from 2015. Joey chose this album.
I did choose this album.
Why?
I chose this album, funny enough, because Dan Deacon, I found out that he was the one that did Drinking Out of Cups.
Oh, really?
He's
that guy.
He was the voice behind that.
Huh.
And whenever I found that out, I had heard the whole story. Oh, he was dropping acid and they locked him in a room. That's not true. He was looking at commercials with the sound off and creating voices for the people on there. Whenever I found out that he did music, I decided to look him up on Spotify and just saw this album and clicked on it.
So when was this that you found out that Dan Deacon did this?
I found out, I first heard his name probably last year, 2019, to date this podcast.
Yeah.
And just kind of, I never looked him up at first, and then I was thinking about it a while ago, and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to check him out, because this year I've been trying to listen to one album a day.
Yeah.
Which is...
For those who are concerned with Joey talking in a slightly higher pitch, he stood up and is trying to entertain his dog who was whining. You probably heard all of that.
Yeah.
But that's why.
Fine.
We have a dog. We're dealing with it.
But yeah, so this one just went out at me, and I decided to listen to it. And
cool. So, interestingly, I heard of Dan Deacon before you. And I had heard Dan Deacon's music before you.
What?
However, I have not listened to a Dan Deacon album.
Oh, okay.
This is my anecdote. I don't remember why, but there was a time in my life where I was watching Adult Swim.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Late at night, and it was just one. I don't do that.
Yeah.
I never did, but one night I did.
Yeah.
And one night only. No, and I turned it on. It was late. I think it was like 3:00 in the morning or something. And they did. I don't know what the show was called. It might have been called The New Now or something. But it was two dudes talking about music.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Oh shit.
That this was the album that I chose from your list.
Yeah.
You submitted a list. I chose this album off of it. But it was like two guys, talking about music. And it wasn't like an artist or an album. It was just they had a lot of undiscovered music.
Yeah.
Or weird non-mainstream music. And they had a record.
Yeah.
It was like a mixtape, and they put it on, and they were just listening to it. They would listen to the track. They would, after it was over, they would discuss it a little bit. They'd play the next track. They sold that record.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many times they've done this, or how many times, or if they're still doing it, or even what year it was. It had to have been like 2014, 2015.
Oh man, old times.
Yeah, it was so long ago. But it was a collection of songs that were all kind of similar feeling. They're all a little bit electro, a little bit like synthy and like abstract.
Yeah.
A bit more spacey than Gliss Riffer, but we can get to that. I don't want to sell this album short.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I ordered this album. I bought it from them. So I have an album called New Now. I don't know if it was numbered.
Yeah.
It was just called New Now. And one of the songs on it was called Change Your Life by Dan Deacon.
Okay.
And I don't really remember how that song goes. I haven't listened to it in a while. But I thought it was interesting that, like...
That is weird.
I picked up on Dan Deacon from a show about two guys talking, and it was called Change Your Life, and I have this album. I have the vinyl at my house. But yeah, so that's where I've heard of Dan Deacon. That's why I chose it from your list.
That means this is going to change your life.
This is going to change our life. This is changing our life. Oh, man. So, the album art... of this album is very interesting. We have it pulled up. I'm not going to turn around to look at it. It's on the screen behind me. So, Joey, can you describe the album art?
Okay, so it's a semi-closed hand with painted fingernails that look like eyeballs.
Yeah.
And there's two little happy flowers with what looks like a nose in the middle of the palm and a mouth with a very long tongue that's wrapping around the hand's legs. Which, this album artwork, while it did make me choose this album out of all of his discography, it didn't really mean anything to me until I listened to a few of the songs, and then I kind of like got it.
It made sense.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, and just for more detail, the hand is green.
It is green.
It's as if this hand has legs coming out of the base of the palm. Mm-hmm. It's a green hand that has a face. Its eyes or fingernails. It has a mouth and a tongue wrapped around its legs.
Yeah.
Weird as hell.
Weird, yeah.
Very
weird.
colorful
Very
as
colorful.
well. There's a lot of colors happening. There's a lot of green, yellow, red, blue.
I like it.
It's interesting. It's eye-catching.
It's very it caught my eye.
It caught your eye. It did its job, and that's what album art is supposed to do. It's not necessarily supposed to mean something necessarily, but it caught your eye.
It does sometimes.
And it does sometimes, as we might discuss here in this podcast. So the first track on the album,
Feel the Lightning.
Feel the Lightning. We should back up just because I've already broken our schedule. Our structure. The album has 8 tracks.
8 tracks.
It's short track list. It's about 43 minutes long. Not too long.
Yeah, not too long.
Not too short.
Which is a good length for an album.
It is a good length.
There's been a lot that have come out like recently, which I've been noticing this trend, and it's pretty nice. Shorter albums. I love it.
Yeah.
Like especially
I like a good short album.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I like a good long album.
Yeah. But it's hard to make a good long album.
It is very hard to make a good long album, especially as a cohesive album.
Yeah.
But that is not what we're here to discuss.
Yeah, no.
We're not talking about albums. We're talking about this album. Gliss Riffer, 2015, Dan Deacon.
Boom.
First track is Feel the Lightning. What are you...
Okay, so this album, it kind of made me think, because there's I'm putting air quotes, girl voice.
Yeah.
That says Feel the Lightning.
Yes.
It sounded a lot like, I don't know if you ever heard of the Apples in Stereo.
I've not.
Okay, so they're a band. They're a band. I won't explain.
Sure.
I don't need to explain their backstory.
They're a band.
They're a band, and they have a girl singer. It sounded a lot like her. As soon as I heard it, I looked it up to see if it was her. It's actually Dan Deacon.
It's Dan Deacon.
He modulated his voice to sound a lot like a girl, which is cool.
That's cool.
I like it.
It's art.
Yeah, it's art. It's pretty cool. So I feel like this sets up the tone for the rest of the album because there are so many uses of his voice as instruments.
Yes.
Which is something I like.
A lot. And it happens, and I don't mean to degrade this for people who aren't a fan, but Kanye West does a lot of vocals in his stuff.
He does.
He uses a lot of layering vocals. Not necessarily his own, like Dan Deacon has done.
Yeah.
But I also noted that there seem to be 3 different vocal styles happening. There's the light and fluffy vocals, which is the female-ish thing. There's the deeper, more clean vocals that come in second, and then there's kind of like another like modulated vocoder kind of vocal thing that happens later. But I tied this to Porter Robinson.
Okay, yeah.
Because he does the same thing.
Yeah.
He records, and it makes sense now that you said that Dan Deacon did that voice,
Yeah.
because Porter Robinson also records his own voice and modulates it to sound like a female singer or like a higher pitched singer.
Yeah.
So I got that vibe. Field Lightning's a very chill song.
Yeah.
I liked it. It's not too aggressively weird like the rest of this album kind of tends to be.
Yeah.
It's a good intro.
It is a very good intro.
There was one question I had, and I don't know if you have the answer to this, but the very vocoded and dirty sounding vocals, I noticed mentioned something about a Tom Petty song.
Yes, it says.
And also Johnny Depp. And I was wondering
plays
if you
the
knew.
rebel named Eddie, Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah. But it's a Tom
about,
Petty song.
Yeah, that's something I wrote. Like, I don't know if the lyrics are just nonsensical.
Right.
Which it kind of ties in to something I realized about the vocals in a later song, which also made me realize about the artwork, which I'll get to when we get to the song that I had my aha moment on.
Interesting. Yeah, so I just noticed, like, I don't listen to lyrics.
Yeah.
Lyrics are the last thing I hear when I hear music, and I'm not sure why that is. I feel like most people kind of run the opposite direction and cling to lyrics. I know our friend Levi also is. Yes. I use her first name. I'm cool with using first names. It's fine. He's cool. He doesn't give a shit. But we discuss a lot of that aspect, is that he picks up on vocals, I pick up on literally everything else first, and I don't know why that is. But yeah, there was something that stood out when I was hearing this vocoded voice kind of thing, talking about Tom Petty songs and Johnny Depp in the middle of this kind of like chill kind of boppy album or song.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the opening line to that chorus is 10,000 eyes and 400 hands. So I mean, it's I think it made me think it's nonsensical, and given the revelation I had about the lyrics, I think it is nonsensical, but it makes sense almost.
Cool.
In a way.
It makes sense in context of itself.
Yeah.
Of the album.
Yeah.
Cool. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Track 2. Sheathed Wings.
Okay. This song, the way that it starts makes me think, like, literally the first thing I wrote about this song is a trip. It starts off kind of like punk rock almost. It's like, da-na-na-na-na-na-na. Like,
yeah, but the first thing I noticed shortly, I guess takes place shortly thereafter, is it's kind of like a semi-monotone singer.
Yep.
It's just kind of like, it hits a couple notes, but it has a profile that's almost one note. That stood out to me.
It's like, what, and this plays into, which is something, once again, I keep talking about this aha moment I had on this.
An epiphany.
But it's like, the first thing I wrote about this song is a trip, and it's like, you break into something whenever it hits the chorus. It's like, which I don't know if you looked up the lyrics, but it's...
I did not.
And when we see the lake, we die! And it's like you're breaking through something.
Yeah.
And it's a cool experience, like, after feeling the energy of Feel the Lightning, which it opens up on a lot of energy. Feel the Lightning, Sheathed Wings, you're breaking through into something else, and it's just cool. Yeah,
so that breakthrough, really, I think... I compared it to the last track. Feel the Lightning's a very subdued, chill track.
Yeah.
It's got some energy, but it's also very, like, floaty.
Yeah.
I wrote down, literally, much better representation. This is for Sheathed Wings.
Yeah.
Much better representation of the album than Feel the Lightning. Because it hits that point where it breaks. Like, it kind of dissociates a little bit.
Yeah.
And that gets more insane, I feel, as we hit the climax of the album.
Definitely.
But definitely a better, if you listen to this album and think, yeah, this first track's good, I want to hear more of that. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Until the end of the album, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's a very interesting album, and I think this is the first taste of how weird it gets.
Yeah, definitely.
You notice something isn't quite...
It's
not what you were expecting.
Yeah. And it's
not in a bad way.
Yeah.
But it's different.
I like the weird stuff. It's kind of... And it's like, to go back with the vocal modulation, you can hear in the back, like, after the first chorus, there's kind of a little voice that's like, I can't exactly do it because I don't have my voice, but it kind of brings in a melody that ties together the whole song. I guess you could almost not call it a melody because it's kind of just vocal noodling or something in the back, but it kind of makes you think that like vocal modulation is definitely going to be a thing on this album.
Yeah. Like, and it is.
Yeah.
Oh boy, is it.
It's definitely a thing.
I think it's good. I think it's good to kind of set that theme early. So I think it's cool.
Yeah. I guess third track.
Sure.
When I Was Done Dying.
When I Was Done Dying.
This is the one that I had my aha moment.
This is 3 tracks in.
3 tracks in, I had my aha moment. And
When I Was Done Dying.
Yeah,
that's a strong title.
It is a very strong title, and it makes sense because.
Explain it.
So, I don't have any confirmation of this. I am almost sure this song is about like either an acid trip or a DMT trip, because there's lyrics that's like, I don't know. Okay, so it starts off on this Eastern Indian string kind of intro.
Kind of annoying, honestly.
What?
I thought it was kind of annoying.
Okay. I liked it. It's like dun, 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 dun,
oh, no, I am thinking of a different track.
Okay.
I am thinking of a later track in the album. This one was much more subdued and chill.
The lyrics that come to my mind are the ending lyrics, which is what makes it kind of. I know you don't have any experience, and I talk like I have much experience. I don't have that much experience
of tripping. Yeah,
but it's like the very last lyrics are, I wanted to step into the cave, further into the cave, but I was not so brave. But the whole song is about, to me, it seems like it's about either a trip where he fully, like, really introspective, or one with what is called ego death, where you feel like you're not a singular person anymore, and you kind of connect with
you're
everything.
A whole with the world, with society, whatever.
And that kind of, like, the artwork on the album is just kind of trippy. It made me think, okay, that's... And, I mean, to connect with the lyrics in the last song, 10,000 eyes and 400 hands, there's a bunch of eyes on a hand on the art. Like,
it's true.
Maybe that's not profound, but like,
it's at the very least explanatory.
Yeah, and it's like, it kind of just makes me think, like, so I heard the nonsensical lyrics in the first with the Tom Petty song and Johnny Depp playing the rebel named Eddie.
Something's not quite right.
Yeah, like maybe he's just out there, like he's just talking about. But this song in particular, I wish I would have wrote down more of the lyrics, because whenever I was reading through them, because I couldn't fully understand all of them, whenever I was reading through them, it made me think that he did a really good job of putting down abstract thought into words somehow.
Yeah, which is a hard thing to do.
It's very hard. I can't do it.
Yeah,
I can't even do it right now.
Yeah, abstract. Like, I mean, like, we tried explaining what the album art looked like.
Yeah.
And it's not something that can be quickly or cohesively explained.
Yeah, definitely.
It's an abstract piece of art.
And then, like, When I Was Done Dying, I think it just hit me. It is ego death. When I was done dying, when it ended.
Yeah.
Like,
he's past that.
There we go.
It happened.
Okay.
Yeah. I did like the music in it. Didn't pay attention. That's something with the album as a whole, and I'll get into it later. But I feel like it was kind of hard to hear the lyrics.
Yeah, it was.
Without knowing them or without looking them up or without hearing it 100 times.
Yeah, I had to look them up. I mean, I've listened to the album like 10 times.
But musically, it was an interesting song. There were like the regular, quote unquote, I did air quotes, so it doesn't have anything. We gotta stop doing that. There was the normal vocal procession, kind of that semi-monotone kind of thing that he does. And then, like, halfway through the song, it kind of, like, changed, and there was a bit more chanting.
Yeah.
There was, like, a lot of, hey,
yeah.
It was kind of, like, an interesting change. And there was, throughout the whole thing, or not necessarily the whole thing, but a lot of it, there was a lot of, like, marimba and xylophone that give it kind of, like, an interesting, adventurous feel.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I think definitely ties in with what you were saying about the lyrics. I'm sorry, maybe that's a step I need to take, is to pay more attention to lyrics, to have more context for the album, to make more interesting discussion. But music is it's where my mind goes.
You listen to it how you listen to it.
That's true. That's very true. So the next track,
Meme Generator.
I just realized when I was taking my notes, I didn't write down the full word. I put meme Generato.
Oh, there you go.
There's no R. I'm going to write that in here. That's an interesting name as well.
Because drinking out of cups.
It was a meme.
He generated
Holy shit, it all makes sense. Do you think the song was about that?
I don't know, but...
Or was it just a fun... Like, Dead Mouse does, like, funny, quote-unquote, I did air quotes again, song titles that don't really associate with the song.
Yeah, I don't 100% know if it was... Like, I'm not in his mind, I guess.
That's fair.
I think it had... I think it probably did.
Sure.
But...
It was at least on his mind.
Yeah, it was at least on his mind. He knows.
Absolutely.
But...
The song was the start of the next level of progression, I think, with the vocals being a bit more abstract. There was a lot of like murky, chopped up vocal bits that were kind of pieced together that would sound like someone talking, but it was just sounds and consonants and like talking without actually talking.
Which, and I mean, I'm completely baseless in this theory, but if this album is supposed to be like a trip, this makes sense because at a certain point you just kind of hear cadences of voices. Yeah. And you're like, not really...
So, not having the background that you have of associating it with tripping and knowing context of this, what seems clearly, in my opinion, to be more of that kind of thing, I wrote, it feels kind of like what I had imagined schizophrenia to feel like.
Yeah, where you're just hearing things.
You're hearing things. It's not necessarily making sense.
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot of noise, not necessarily at this point in the album, I wouldn't call it noise, but there's a lot of, like, layered sound effects and a lot of stuff that is very, like, it's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot happening, general.
There's a lot happening.
To process. So I thought that was kind of an interesting, and it's kind of a point, I think it's the first point on the album where he started kind of using those vocal bits, but it does come back throughout the rest of the album.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's kind of like, while it is, there's a lot going on, I feel like the main, like there's a vibe of the track that's kind of just chill. Yeah. Like it's not an intense song like you'll hear some things get later in the album. Right. But it's like, I don't know, kind of just laid back.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I think the first time I listened to it, I wasn't super crazy about it, but it grew on me. It grew on me long enough. Sorry, Joey just ran away from the table. I know I don't have to explain this because you wouldn't have known any different, but I can't stop myself. He ran away from the table to let his dog outside.
But I heard everything you said.
But he heard everything I said, and more importantly, you guys heard everything I said. But yeah, it didn't blow my mind the first time I listened to it. Yeah. But listening to it, I listened to it maybe 10 times. Yeah. I think in the past couple days. It grew on me. I like this song more than I initially did, for sure.
Yeah. It grew on me after about the third, because I was about in your camp. I had to listen to it a few times. The first, I guess I'll go into this more whenever we talk about the whole album. But the first 3 songs instantly hit me. Yeah. And then it was like,
it slowed down a little.
Yeah, this was the point where the album kind of changed.
Yeah. For better. Yeah. I mean, it makes it interesting. Yeah. It gives us something to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
The fact that we're having this conversation means it worked. Cool. So the next track, Mind on Fire. Fifth track. We're halfway through the album at this point.
Yeah. I feel like Mind on Fire, like it's a good title for this track because it does pick up more than Meme Generator was. Like it kind of adds a little bit of energy, which it had. I don't know. I wrote down it has a very jingly feel to it.
I noted, at least in the first half of the song, that's kind of a recurring theme. Is it feels like the songs change about halfway through. Yeah. Which isn't an issue. Yeah. But the first half of the song, it's pretty much as close to a normal song on this album as it gets. A lot of the other songs are less mainstream, normal, acceptable, whatever. It's almost ballady in the sense of this album. There's clean vocals that have a very like strong push to the front of like saying a message. I don't know what the message is because I didn't pay attention. I don't listen to music, but I definitely noted that it was the closest to a mainstream song that this album has. Yeah. At least on the first half.
It definitely had intelligible lyrics, I guess, that you would hear on the first pass. Like one of them I wrote down. It's a pretty good lyric that just talks about, I don't know, mind on fire makes me think of a troubled mind.
Yeah.
One of the lyrics, I need your help, but I don't know what I require.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It does.
I mean, it rhymes with mind on fire, but like,
it's kind of like deep.
Yeah.
In a way, like
it makes, I don't know, like on this one, once I realized the lyrics were nonsensical, I didn't pay attention to them too much, except for stuff that stood out to me here and there. This was just something that stood out.
I mean, it's relatable. Like everyone to some degree knows when they need help.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean you know how to get it or what it is.
You don't know what you're doing. Yeah.
You feel it. A lot of people don't get help, but
yeah.
that's a bigger discussion.
Yeah, that's
not it's not about this album. That's go get help if you need help is what I'm saying.
Go get help
you
if
people.
You need help.
But yeah, and then there was some more interesting vocal stuff happening in the song.
Yeah.
It sounded like kind of like he was flicking a kill switch.
Yeah.
Through like the midsection of the song. He was just kind of like cutting in and out. It wasn't chopped up. It was still coherent.
Yeah.
You could still understand what was being said, but it was some more interesting like vocal playing, which seems to be a recurring theme.
Yeah.
Throughout the
I did
film.
like the kill switch effect. I don't know what he was saying while he was doing it.
Yeah, I can't think of it either.
But
I'm pretty sure it was intelligible.
Yeah.
I just don't listen because I'm a bad music listener. Maybe that's what I'm understanding.
No, you're a good music listener, a bad lyric listener.
Yeah, I'm bad at understanding and dissecting songs based on lyrical content. But whatever, to each his own.
Yeah,
I'll listen to music and I'll enjoy it. You listen to music and enjoy it. That's all that fucking matters.
There we go.
Are we cursing in this podcast? I guess so.
I think we are.
Oh boy, still got some things to work out. But it's fine.
That's why this is the first one.
That's why this is the first one, and why you didn't hear it first.
Because I knew there would be a lot of craziness associated with the album. We could work it out.
Unscheduled stuff, which is fine. Next track.
Learning to Relax.
Learning to Relax. Track 6.
This is, I wrote down, now don't hold me to this, that this was my favorite song out of the second half of the album.
Out of the second half?
Yeah.
What was your favorite song in the first half?
Possibly When I Was Done Dying. Possibly, I do really like
it ties it together. Feel the Lightning, I think, is my favorite of the whole album, perhaps.
Yeah.
Just because it's... I don't dislike this album.
Yeah.
We'll get into it later. Yeah. But it was the closest thing that I had a touch point to.
Yeah.
Like it was an anchor.
Yeah.
For me.
Definitely.
Going into this, it was a solid start to an experience that was this album. But we'll get into that. Learning to Relax is what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Very interesting title for the song. Starts off chill.
It does start off chill. And to touch on something you said earlier, because I just keep talking about using vocals as instruments.
Yeah.
I wrote down, not at all related to Kanye, but it is a very Kanye-esque way to make music.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's something that I think we both kind of noted throughout the album, is he uses a lot of techniques to change how he sounds.
Yeah.
And it makes it more interesting. I think it's interesting. Kanye does it a lot as well.
Yeah.
Sorry if you don't like Kanye, but like Dan Deacon. Or if you like Dan Deacon. Or if you don't like Dan Deacon, but like Kanye.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not here to insult you.
Yeah.
We're just drawing...
drawing
correlations. Parallels. That's a much better way to put it. But yeah, so there was more of the vocoder stuff.
Yeah.
That we noted. It's almost... I struggle with this song because it's called Learning to Relax, and it starts off almost relaxing.
Yeah.
But then it changes. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like the opposite of relaxing to me.
Yep.
It goes off the rails, and it almost, like, to me, the layperson, who doesn't listen to a lot of abstract stuff, it's very noisy.
Yeah.
There's a lot happening in my ears, and I don't know how to process it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like industrial music in that way, but it's like industrial music if it was like a toy factory.
Yeah.
It's still very much like poppy sounding.
Yeah.
I guess, but there's still a whole lot of noise, like what you would imagine to see in like a kid's movie, where they're showing like a factory pan or something. It's like just noise.
Yeah.
That's what it is to me. Mm-hmm. And I know it's not to you. And that's why I think this is interesting. It's just because like there's so much going on that I can't think about it all.
I agree with you, but I also disagree.
Yeah.
Because it does...
It's the first part of the podcast.
It does start off relaxing.
Yeah.
And then it turns into there's a lot of stuff going on. I feel like with the name Learning to Relax, it talks about learning to relax despite the circumstances.
Yeah.
Because you're in a relaxing place and it leads you into that. And if you can maintain...
That's true. It's like guided meditation.
Yeah.
If you get really good at meditation, you can do it in any circumstance. You can do it when you're outside in a thunderstorm or a tornado, whatever. Not that you should be meditating when there's a tornado, but
disclaimer, don't do that.
Disclaimer, don't do that. It was a metaphor. We should get t-shirts that say don't do that.
Don't do that.
But yeah, it was an interesting song. I'm not sure it's going to win me over anytime soon. But
probably won't win anything else either.
Well, I mean, maybe but someday.
I liked it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Well, see, that's the thing. I listened to a lot of you talked about not listening to the more abstract. That's what I listen to.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just used to it at this point.
Absolutely. And maybe by the end of this podcast, not this episode, but by the end of our long running 10-year podcast that we've had going, if that happens, I'll have changed my mind, and I expect that to happen.
Yeah.
Maybe not to Dan Deacon.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of why we're doing this.
By the end of this podcast, you will be exclusively listening to black metal and pop unironically for the production quality.
Yes, and maybe we should have hashed this out before starting. Maybe the next album is where we go into that.
There we go.
Kind of that interesting. It's a very interesting dichotomy.
Okay.
Black metal and pop music.
We listen to baby metal
that you just made. No, not baby metal. We'll talk about it at the end of the podcast where we decide if we want to do this. At this point, we have to do it.
Yeah.
But we're still talking about this album.
Yes.
We're on track 7 now.
Take it to the max.
Take it to the max. Very, very apt name.
Fitting title was the first words I wrote.
Fitting title. Very apt name was what I wrote. Take it to the max. The whole song is like a build-up.
It is.
And then a climax.
It is just a build-up.
And then it kind of winds down a little
bit.
At the end.
It starts off really quiet, and then, this is where I wrote the word glissy. It's Gliss Riffer. It's very... Because there's some very, trilly, I guess, would be... At the end of the song, it builds. There's these powerful synth keys at the very end. It starts off all quiet and nice. You've learned to relax, and now you're relaxing, and it's building you back up again.
Yes, it is. By the end of the song, there's a lot of energy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of everything happening.
Yeah, and it's just... By the end of it, there's so much noise going on. I feel what you felt at the end of Learning to Relax.
Yeah, and I actually did. I felt that way a lot this album.
Yeah.
I didn't specifically write it on this track, but I'm sure I felt it.
Yeah.
I think after the first time I write it, I'm just like, that's what the album is.
Yeah.
And I have to get past that.
Yeah.
It's not just noise, but it feels like just noise.
Yeah. Because I guess I'll save it till later. Sure. But yeah.
Take it to the max. Took it to the max.
It's a big build up for the last song. It is the 7th song. There are 8 songs. So
yes.
It's a build up for the 8th song.
A very good point. The 8th song being Steely Blues.
Steely Blues.
It's that song track alone sounds a little out of place for this album from what we've experienced.
It does.
But it's good. I like it.
Do you like it?
I do. I actually really like this track. It's kind of spacey.
Yeah.
It's very much a continuation, I guess. So if Take It to the Max hit a climax and then maybe started dipping down a little, this is a continuation of that.
Yeah.
In a way.
See, yeah.
It's very, very calming. I think it's a good way to end the album.
Yeah, I agree. Especially because it's like Take to the Max, pulled it all the way up to 100, and then you're going all the way back down with Steely Blues. I think the last minute and a half are silence.
Yeah, it is.
It's
just silence. And I noticed that. I was like, did the track end, or is some music app being weird? It happened consistently every time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a very calming end cap on what is an otherwise very chaotic ride.
Yeah.
I think it's a very suitable ending. It's a very, I don't know, it's a good third act.
Yeah.
Just by itself.
I agree. I like the way I'm very, very big on ending tracks.
Yeah.
And how they relate to the rest of the album. I thought this one.
I think that's very. Every track on an album is important, but the beginning and the end are the most memorable.
Yeah.
Because when you're starting an album, the first track sets the tone for the album.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in this case, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
And then the last track is obviously the last thing you heard. It's the freshest in your memory. So I think that's it's not necessarily a conversation to be had for each individual album.
Yeah.
We're not talking about general music, but I guess we have to because this is part of music.
At some point, we have to.
We have to. It's part of music. But yeah, so like it's a good ending.
Yeah.
I like good ending songs. This was a good ending song.
I agree.
It killed it. So, that's the end of the album.
That is the end of the album.
Full thoughts. I'm gonna go first.
Yeah, you go first.
Since you recommended this album. Just to reiterate, I know we introduced ourselves at the beginning, but in case you've forgotten, this is the voice of Jeremy.
And this is the voice of Joey.
That's Joey. That's two of us. We're just two dudes talking about music and recording and putting it on the internet, hoping it goes somewhere. But if it doesn't, honestly, I'm okay with doing this just for us.
Yeah, I'll listen to new music anytime.
Yeah. So full album notes. My biggest quote unquote complaint is that it's kind of noisy.
Yeah.
There's a lot happening.
Yeah.
There's a lot of layers, a lot of sounds, a lot of instruments, and it's something that I'm not used to. It's kind of shocking. It doesn't make it bad.
Yeah.
But that's my biggest criticism, followed kind of closely by the vocals being kind of quiet, which doesn't make sense. I know because I say I don't listen to lyrics, but I listen to vocal melodies.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense. Vocal melodies are another texture to add on to the music. So even if you're not listening to the lyrics, it's still music.
So a lot of and I don't know if it was just the app that I was using to listen to music or the recording that I had on that app, but the vocals seemed pretty quiet and almost buried in some cases, which I'm sure it was supposed to be in some cases, kind of buried in there to add layers, right? This whole thing is like an ogre or an onion. It has layers. Right. But I thought it was noisy. The vocals were kind of quiet, despite me not really listening to it. I'm not sure it's something that I will listen to very often after this point. I think it's interesting enough to listen to. I would recommend everyone listen to it, just because that's why we're doing this, right?
Yeah.
To listen to new stuff. Maybe this is something I guess we can breach here, but maybe more in depth later. Don't listen to the album just because we're telling you to.
Yeah.
Discovery is all about doing what you want, right? You need to it's good to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, but at the same time, you know what you're feeling into.
Yeah.
If you're not in the mood for some very abstract electronic kind of like poppy there's a lot going on in this album.
There is a lot going on.
If you try listening to it and figure you can't, turn it off. You don't have to finish it.
It may make you mad if you try to listen to this album
it's true.
whenever you're not.
It might upset you, and you may never like Dan Deacon.
Exactly, and that wouldn't be fair to Dan or you.
That's true, because I feel like, and this may be, we'll save it for later. Save it for later. I have a very interesting, I'm not an interesting person. I have a very specific stance on gateways and music in general. But we can talk about that later in a more less focused on this album.
There you go.
Thing. Last note I had for this album is that it's very Joey. Woo! This is I was thinking this is exactly the kind of music that Joey would like, and it makes sense that you chose it.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that you like it for reasons that I'm sure you will explain.
I will.
And
explain.
You've been explaining.
A little bit.
In your defense, we've kind of been dipping our toes in the. This is why I think it as a whole is cool.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for songs or for albums to have context or meaning.
Yeah.
Right. So you found a meaning in his lyrics, in his music, and kind of it pulled the album together for you.
Yeah.
I didn't find that because mostly I don't listen to lyrics.
Yeah.
That's why I need to get better at it. But if I don't, fuck you.
Whatever.
It's I enjoy the music. So, tell me why I'm wrong about not fully loving this album.
You're not wrong.
I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong.
It's that easy.
This was a trick. This is all a trick. I hate this album.
Joey hates it. It's a test.
I do really like this album. But I like the first half substantially more than I like the second half.
I can get behind that.
Because I
don't know. I feel like the whole midsection to me was just kind of a blur.
Yep.
I liked the beginning. I liked the end.
See, so the first 3 tracks, instantly liked.
Sure.
Meme Generator through Learning to Relax grew on me.
Yep.
Take It to the Max and
Steely
Blues were a tough sell, but
it made
I
sense.
ended up liking them a lot.
They make sense in the context of the album, I think.
On their own, because it's the first 5 songs are their normal length like 4 minutes, whatever, 4-minute songs.
Yes.
It's just okay. So that's 20 minutes. Then the last 3 songs
Or like 7 minutes.
Slow, almost Learning to Relax is like 6 minutes and 40
6
seconds.
hours.
6 hours.
Yeah, no.
6 minutes and 40 seconds long. Then Take It to the Max is like 7.5.
Yeah.
And then
Silly
Blues is like another 7.5.
Yeah.
With like a minute and a half of silence. So it's like
just to decompose. Like,
yeah.
Not decompress.
No,
I like decompose. We're not dying here, okay?
I
mean, maybe it fits. Maybe it's the end of your acid
Yeah.
trip and you're just laying
You're
and
just
becoming Earth. You know?
Yeah.
It's part of ego death.
But yeah, I liked it a lot once I could fully get into it, I guess. Like,
sure.
And I didn't have the full experience the first time I listened to this album, and I think that kind of hindered me because I only listened to the first 6 tracks the first time I listened to the album.
Oh, was that recently or was that
it was
last year?
It was a while ago.
Okay.
The first time I listened to it, I only listened to the first 6 tracks. I was coming home from work. I didn't have time to listen to the last one.
That happens all the time.
And then it was like there was no ending. And then whenever I went back and tried to like listen to the whole thing again, it was like I was already familiar with the first 6 tracks.
Right.
And then the last 2 tracks were just, like they were just there.
Right.
And it was kind of like adding on to something I already knew. But then once I was able to like step back and come back into it, then I was fine.
Yeah, and I think that's an important note. A lot of times when you listen to an album, the first time you're not going to be that crazy about it.
Yeah.
Right. It's rare. I don't want to say it's rare, but I said it. It's uncommon, I think, for me to love an album the first time I hear it.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but not often. A lot of times it takes a second or third listening to like really understand what the album's about and what it's trying to do.
Yeah.
And I think a bit of that's expectations. So when you start an album for the first time, you either have expectations from what the artist sounded like previously on their albums, or you don't have any context or any expectations, and you're just kind of going in blind. Yeah. So I think listening to an album the first time is just getting your bearings, saying, okay, this is what the artist is doing, and this is how it makes sense. And then when you go back and listen to it with that context, it makes it a lot better. It's more enjoyable because you know things.
Yeah. And like when you don't have context, like you had mentioned, like the first song, the intro to the album, that's kind of your context. And this one, it was different than the rest of the album.
Yeah.
Which is something that I liked about it.
Sure.
Because of the nature of kind of like, I don't know, experimental's kind of like a whatever word.
A catch-all.
But like, it's more experimental.
Yeah.
And I like when you get eased into it, and I feel like the first track kind of did that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the thing that we were both kind of saying. When it hits meme generator, this album goes into full like experimental mode for like it's only weirder.
Yeah.
Like each track. But I think it does a good job of easing you into it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're necessarily ready for it when it happens.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't necessarily ready for it.
Yeah.
But I listened to it, like I said, probably about 10 times over the past 4 days since we decided to do this. It's all coming together very quickly.
Yeah, very quickly.
But that's fine. That's cool.
I've listened to about 7 or 8 albums in the past few days.
Yeah, you've been going crazy, but we'll get to that maybe later. So I think it all makes sense. You're moving your phone closer to me. But yeah, I think it was good. This was the first podcast.
This was the first podcast.
We did it.
I liked it.
We sat down. We discussed the album.
I like talking about things.
It was fun.
Nobody fucking talks to me about anything.
I was smiling like the entire time. It was fun.
It was very fun.
Good company. Next week on Charismatic Tunes, which is not actually our name, but maybe.
Working title,
Charismatic Tunes. That was literally just something Joey said right before we started. Next week, I think it might be interesting, and I don't know if you want to go this direction or not, but you mentioned liking black metal and pop music, and there's a correlation with an album that's already on our list, and that is Poppy.
Yeah, okay.
Poppy, I disagree. It's her newest album. It's something.
There we go.
And it's one of these albums where I'm not sure if I want to give you context before going into it or not. I feel like I should give you a little bit of context.
I have slight context.
Okay. Well,
I know the story of
okay. Well, we
her
can
peeps.
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about this off the podcast.
Yeah.
But so yeah, this coming week we're gonna listen to Poppy. I Disagree. If you guys, the audience, would like to listen to it, we can make this a discussion. If you have thoughts about Dan Deacon, please feel free to shoot us an email or leave a comment or whatever it is.
Or call me and tell me I'm wrong.
Call Joey. His number is 555. No. Yeah, we. I don't think either. I think we're both doing this so that we personally can explore new music.
Yes.
But it's also interesting to hear other people's context because it's all personal. Music is a personal experience.
Yeah.
You always relate it to what you know and what you've experienced. So your take on things that we have talked about aren't going to line up necessarily with what we got. So if you want to listen to I Disagree by Poppy for this next week,
listen to it.
Listen to it.
And if you don't.
And yeah, I mean, if you're not ready for it, that's fine. If you hate it, that's also cool.
Yeah.
We can talk about it. Talk about why you hate it.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I'm not going to talk about why I hate it because I'm going to love it.
I mean, it's okay to hate things. It's okay. It's okay to not be in love with everything. I think it's important because we're people. We have opinions. But
opinions are like assholes.
They are
they
like
smell terrible.
They do. They stink. They're. Well, I mean, if you. We're not going to get into that. Sure, something. Okay. Anyways,
that's my end quote.
That's the end of the episode. Next week on Charismatic Tunes, we're talking about Poppy. Poppy. See you then.
Bye.